After college, I went to work for Potomac Films in Washington. I think I had a couple of years with them, and realized that I needed to go to L.A. or New York. But one of my last desperation tries before I went there was to go over to Geographic, where my boss knew somebody and had a job interview, and I suggested they start an educational film department that obviously I would do or work for, and they were not interested. And very shortly after that, I went to L.A. This whole Walper thing started. And in 64, 65, Geographic, having decided that they would indeed do television, started their own television division under the Bob Doyle, who we were talking about, who was the founder of the National Geographic television department. They made a bunch of films, and let me just fill in a little of that, because Geographic, it's interesting now, because Geographic is the only American magazine that really made a successful translation into television and stayed there. And the reasons are kind of interesting. Certainly one is that it was a monarchy in those days, and it was controlled by the Grosvenor family, and the then in charge Grosvenor was a very dynamic editor and brilliant guy. And what he said goes. And he was invited to be a guest on Omnibus, which was an early kind of classy talk show. He was probably the first Grosvenor to appear on television, and he went up and showed a little film and talked. And when he came in, as the story goes, when he came into the office the following day, the black man who rode his private elevator up to the third floor every day of his life, said, "Dr. Grosvenor, I saw you on TV last night. You were wonderful. My whole family saw it." And this guy was thrilled. And Grosvenor thought, anything medium that can reach into this guy's home and, get him excited and his family should be what we're doing. So he got out of the elevator, they say, and said, "There shall be National Geographic television." And everybody said, "Yes, boss." And they started spending money and so on. But Grosvenor didn't understand television the way he should have. He made one phone call, it is said, to Stanton, Bill Stanton, who was the co-head of CBS, and just said, his personal friend, said, "We're going to do this, we're going to make these programs, will you put them on?" And Stanton said, "Oh, anything you do, sure." They made, just out of the box, started making anyway, 5 very expensive films. They finished 1 or 2, hired a lot of people, set up a department before they went up to CBS and had Stanton make good on his promise. And then he found out, people found out long, that even the president of the network doesn't program a network, and the people who program the network want to put on what they think is going to work and nothing else. So he showed his shows, and they said, "No, thank you. We don't think it's going to work." And I guess then he took them to the other networks, and they all said the same thing. And I don't know how it happened. Probably Walper and Bob Doyle know exactly how it happened. They said, "Well, if you take this project to Walper and he gets a hand in it, we'll put it on the air, but you need some help." So Geographic came out, and it's like someone bringing in a car engine that they've taken apart and can't get back together again, and at a last resort take to a mechanic. Came into Walper and said, "Here it is, can you fix it?" And it was a huge mess. But I was right there, and I was interested in sailboats, and I'd come from the East, and I'd actually lived in Washington, and I knew, I read National Geographic. And the rest of the crowd at Walper was pretty urban, pretty New York, not where Geographic was coming from. So I got in on the ground floor of that.